Okay, welcome to another advanced ball striking. Well, we'll call this conversation. And we have Cory Crelan today with us, who is a master professional, PGA, AAA Class A. And he has a company called Retro Golf. Is that correct?
Retro Golf Club, yes.
Retro Golf Club. And basically, he's put together what hundreds of sets of just classic, great blades and irons and persimmons, and set up a situation where somebody wants to host an event and uh, with the classic game that got enough clubs for a whole event for people to show up and play. Is that am I close?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It essentially is I've kind of made the distinction that there's like three eras of golf equipment. There's hickory, which is up till 1935, and basically I'm covering post hickory, which but the clubs were largely the same up until the kind of pick a date, but early to mid 90s, and all
Say
the clubs that I
95,
have.
yeah, maybe 1995.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of exceptions to the rule, but
Yeah.
essentially all the clubs that I have, they're all persimmon laminates, and they're all blade irons. So, the other cool part is that you just don't see anymore is all these clubs were, forged, made, all 100% made in the USA. So,
Yeah, so
yeah, so
no
I've got
tariffs.
roughly, what's that?
No tariffs.
No,
No
no,
tariffs. Okay.
all
Okay.
no tariffs on these 100%. They, um, it's a lot of brands that, if you're newer to golf, you might not recognize some of the brands like, I grew up in the town in Chicopee, Massachusetts, where Spalding was based out of, and they were essentially like the TaylorMade of the golf world for probably 50 years.
Spalding driver,
Yeah.
model 28 right here. I've just
Yep.
got a whole bunch of clubs sitting next to me because Monty and I were talking about clubs, and of course, the classic McGregor's, right? This one, 693. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of brands like even some of them it's a lot of these golf brands don't really die very easily and kind of get reborn in a bunch of different ways. But um, yeah, so I've got almost 100 sets of clubs. They're all in uh, vintage, or they're actually new logo Jones bags, and yeah, it's just kind of like a turnkey operation. And from my mind, these are the clubs that I'm 51 years old, and this is the clubs that that both you and I grew up with. I don't have anything negative about Hickory clubs, but they don't resonate with me because I didn't play with them as a junior. Just the same way that I don't want to drive. If you were to toss me the keys to a 1920 Model T, like it's not going to interest me like a 1980 911 Porsche would. So
Yeah. Right.
um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I've got a set of hickories, and I've played them, and they're fun. I feel like the advent of steel shafts was a move towards a golf club that was a little more refined, and allowed for a player to have a consistent set of shafts, right? In the
Mhm.
flexation rates, running from wedge to one iron or whatever. The steel was just a more refined version. I can take a hickory 5 iron and a steel shafted 5 iron like a McGregor tourney or something. And if I hit a golf ball, I hit about the same distance. You know, I mean,
Mhm.
assuming that I set the club up the same weight and lie angle and all that. I mean, the
Right.
distance the difference in distance would be negligible between the two. It's not, it wasn't a, moving from uh, hickory to steel, it was not a game changer. I mean, it's not like they had to redo the courses and everything like that.
Correct.
You
Correct.
know,
They
it
weren't
just made
adding
me,
yardage to St. Andrews with the advent of steel.
Yeah, and I think that's where you and I would, certainly agree that, the turn that golf has taken towards high tech and mainly the driver, is really my issue because, the ball's going 15% farther when you've got, a giant head, and I'll just use like this soda can. But I mean, if it's this wide and you've got this springboard, bam, effect coming off with the trampoline, the wider it is, the bigger the trampoline. I'm going to jump higher on a big trampoline than I am a little one that's in the gym that you jog on or something. I'm not going to be able to get up and touch the ceiling at 20 feet up or something, right? So,
Yeah, well, I mean,
bravo to
I think,
the scientists for figuring all this stuff out. The USGA is basically just giving them, full range. Just do whatever you want. Anything goes. Golf balls, clubs, make them as long as they want. No size restrictions on the heads. The golf ball can be anything. And where the average tour player was hitting 250-yard drives, basically, when I say average, every time you'd hit one 270, you'd have a guy, you'd hit one 230 on a heel shot or a miss hit or something. But, that your average good amateur tour player was hitting about 250. And that would have been going all the way back to the Hickory era, all the way up until, say, the mid 90s. And then you had the
right.
birth of the Big Bertha and all the other stuff. So, um, is that a good
Yeah,
thing?
I mean,
No, it's
easy
not a good
example is
thing.
I can't remember the name of the tour pro who won at LACC at the U.S. Open, who, you know, kind of widely, kind of half barely hit the face of his drive on number 18, whereas, you know, with uh, with a persimmon driver, I can't remember his name. He was the guy who busted the locker at Oakmont this year.
Yeah, yeah.
But that far of an off center hit on a persimmon just wouldn't have won the U.S. Open.
No, no.
It's a totally different game.
Yeah, so given that,
The
I think
driving.
we've both kind of thought, feel the same way. That you have kind of these three eras, like in the Hickory era, the persimmon and blade, steel shaft era from 35 to 95, and then kind of super golf called the Tiger, era.
Right.
Everybody launching it. Um, the if you look at it in retrospect, hindsight, we can look back. Now we're kind of 30 years into this whole super golf thing, and you can argue, the people argue it's a technology, let it do what it is, it's developing, blah blah. But I think what people are not understanding is that in any sport you have to have a serendipity, a harmony between the equipment and the size of the playing field, for instance, right? So in
Right.
football, it's still 100 yards. Tennis court's still the same. This sort of thing. This whole idea
Yeah, I
that
mean they
golf
put they
is like,
put
oh,
they put restrictors on NASCARs to keep it within.
yeah,
There's a parameters that you have to follow.
to keep the parameters right. So, the 250-yard drive. I mean, when I looked at a scorecard and I saw 400 yards, or I look at on the tee, it says, number five, 400 yards. I know that if I hit a 250-yard drive out there, I'm gonna have 150 yards left, and I know I'm gonna hit a 7-iron. Right? You know, if it was 450 yards, I knew I'm gonna have a 200-yard shot coming in. Drive at 250, 200 yards, bring me to 450. Now they're hitting, flip wedges. 450 is like just a drive and a chip shot in or something. So it
Yeah,
feels
you saw that at Cypress
disrespectful.
Point this year in the Walker
Yeah,
Cup.
yeah, it was just in
Yeah, I mean, it's
ridiculous what
great
was
that they
happening.
played. It's great they played a classic course like Cypress Point, but I mean, it's a travesty that, like you said, you hit a drive in a flip wedge, or it's just not the way the course was intended to be.
No,
It
of
wasn't
course not.
meant to be manhandled like that.
And there's a lot of talk, always about, you hear like, oh, we're gonna redo the course to original intentions, but they ignore the equipment part of it. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
crazy, crazy. But that being said, now golf 3.0, we say Hickory 1.0. What we're talking about, golf 2.0, 3.0 now. they need to have golf courses that would be set up for the modern game, maybe 8,000 yard course, something like that. I think build new courses to accommodate if this is what people want to do, they want to play the 3.0 version, then you would play it on a 3.0 golf course. I think what's
Right.
upsetting to me is when they're going in and having to retrofit, redesign these classic courses, which are just perfect for golf 2.0, to then say, no, we're going to turn this into a 3.0. Oh, well, gee, we don't have enough room here. Or even at Augusta
It's
National, they actually had to go and buy property from the neighbor or whatever and I mean, it's complete insanity as far as I'm concerned.
yeah.
And I
You
think
know,
a lot of
how many
people
clubs
agree
have
with that.
the pockets the size of, Augusta National to buy, to spend tens of millions of dollars to lengthen their courses. It's like you said, it's like putting a square peg in a round hole. And there's a whole, contingent of people that just say, just grow the rough. And, it's not that simple.
Well, thank you for coming on. I'm not kicking you off the conversation, but thanks for being here because I just feel like I'm the only person in the world, that has this
No,
view.
I can relate to it 100%. I mean, I feel like I'm, out on a limb, and I you know, it's how I first got into this. I bought up a collection of clubs of all places. I'm about an hour outside of New York City. I drove into the Lower East Side of Manhattan. A guy there, his father-in-law had passed away, and I bought the remnants of his collection. I must have got about 40 sets of irons, probably, I'm going to guess 50, 60 persimmons. He really liked like that 8802 blade style putter, so he must have had 25 variations of that 8802. And I bought all those clubs for I think it was $200. And I clearly didn't need all those clubs, but I was like, how? I thought it was kind of like a fluke thing. And when I went on, I started looking up on eBay, like, all these brands that I remembered as, playing as a kid, McGregor, Wilson, all of these things. And they're kind of in no man's land. And I don't, to me, even 5 years on, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, and I don't, we traded a couple emails. It's like, yeah, I mean, I use like the car analogy like all the time. Like if I could buy like 1980 911 Porsches, Mercedes 560 SEC, if I could buy those for 10 cents in the dollar, I mean, I'd buy as much as I had room for. It,
Yeah.
to me, it's a travesty how the golf world has just kind of shunned or looked down on an entire era of equipment. And there's this sort of perception that the clubs, because of the equipment companies, that these clubs are unplayable, and or that you have to be a really strong player or a professional in order to play blades. And my personal set of clubs, which my dad bought new in I think 1981, set of Hogan Cameo Apex 2s, paid a lot of money for those back in the day. I think they were
Yeah.
$500-600 or something like that. And at the time, I mean, he shot anywhere from 85 to 95. And he bought the persimmon woods with them. And if someone, like, just think about that, like in 2025, like if a guy who was basically a 20 handicap went and bought these set of Hogan Apex 2s, like it would take the oxygen out of the room. People would be aghast that it is. And to me it just doesn't make sense. And there's so much of this too. I think there's a large contingent of people that haven't grown up with these clubs and really don't understand what a golf club should look like. In the same way that 1980 Porsche 911 is a beautiful car as compared to a Buick station wagon. That 911 is a work of art just to look at. And like all these clubs that I have, Wilson Staffs, Walter Hagen's, Spalding Top Flights, any number of Hogan's. There's all these brands, and these clubs are works of art. They're beautiful to look at, and if you don't have that frame of reference, then it's sort of lost on you. And you kind of like fall into the hamster wheel of modern equipment where everything becomes obsolete in 2 or 3 years, where it just cracks me up, because I mean, like, Johnny Miller, they had a what's in the bag when he shot 63 at Oakmont, and he's basically playing with like 20, 30-year-old clubs.
At that time, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, people make a big deal now when someone's playing, like a four-wood that's, a couple generations old. It gets attention. So, there's just so much of this stuff where I think, in my mind, like people don't know what they're missing, because, to hit these clubs. I don't play very much golf. I've competed professionally, and for me, I don't play seriously. I'm not going to practice that much anymore. It's more gratifying to when I hit one on the center of on the screws. It's not hyperbole. It actually happens. Or you hit an iron, and the amount of satisfaction that and the feeling that it gives is so much richer than a current club. So
Yeah, no, I there's so many points you're making here. The aesthetic of it, the look of it, like you say, they're works of art. I'm, in my bag, I'm currently playing like 1951 McGregor Tommy Armour Silver Scott 985s. But the reason
okay,
that I play them, it's not a retro thing for me. It's because I actually believe that these are the best irons that were ever made. So, as far as playability, I can shape shots with them. I mean, I love the feel of them. I hit the ball. I mean, I just played Pasatiempo, one of Alistair McKenzie's gems. I just played there a
sure.
couple weeks ago. It was the first round of golf I played all year, because I don't really play much anymore. But I went out and hit 15 greens with those things. I missed one fairway. That was a fairway off the first hole, because I just driven 2.5 hours to get down there. I was a little stiff or whatever. Hit it, just about
Yep.
3 yards in the right rough. I hit every other fairway, hit 15 greens. This idea that these clubs are inferior in performance or something, I just don't buy that. If you had given me, cavity back, lightweight, upright irons, I'll guarantee you I would not have hit 15 greens. I would hit it a lot worse. The clubs in the 1950s, the irons that were made were heavier than the 1940s, okay? And they were a little bit heavier than they were in the 1960s. They got a little bit lighter, just about a half ounce or so, maybe an ounce, a little bit lighter in the 60s. And then
Yep.
in the 70s, they got a little bit lighter, like the Hogan Apex you're talking about, which those
Yeah, well,
Cameo
you hate to
were
see
under the
those
Christmas tree for me in 1977, I think, when I was 13 years old. My dad got me a set of Apex 2 Cameo Hogans, and I remember opening that Christmas box, and it was just like, oh my, it's like my dad was like, "You're gonna be a pro." So
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, that they kind of had that as you go along. You get into like the Hogans in like the '70s. They had those sort of in between years where they had first that sort of oddball. Um, they had the Vector shaft, which wasn't did that was a little bit lighter, and then the one before it, there's one that they only made for like 2 years, and it's not quite like it's a very thin walled shaft.
was that
It's
the
supposed to be
legend, the
lighter weight.
legend, the legend shaft?
Legend shaft. Yeah, they're a pain to
Oh yeah,
regrip,
yeah.
and generally, and not that any of these clubs have a ton of resale, but people generally don't care for them either. But yeah, I mean, and then even when I was a junior, the set that I used was another sort of along those lines. I had the early 80s lightweight fad where I had a set of Hogan Vector lights, and as like a 10, 12-year old, I could whip those around. I could generate some club head speed with those.
Yeah, the heavier, the heavier clubs, there's an argument for that. Certainly going with more mass. I mean, you can certainly feel more mass in your hands, right? So I think everyone would
Yeah.
agree that golf's a game of feel, right? Now, if the club is heavier, you can feel the weight, you can feel the club, which helps you feel where the leading edge of the club face is at as you're going through this heavier club. You can feel more. The other thing with a heavier club is it's harder to accelerate the club initially. So and when you're making transition, it's heavier, so it's like you start building up the momentum and the mass of the club as it's coming into impact. The lightweight club is very quick from the top, very easy to click.
Well,
And what happens is
absolutely. I mean,
when you accelerate
the tempo
quickly,
tempo with the older clubs is, it's a much more of a, there's not a, you can't buggy whip, you can't buggy whip these old, heavier clubs. It's not going to suit, especially with the woods. It's not going to help you.
yeah, if you look at the what if we kind of go down the necessity is the mother of invention kind of a thing, 1950s, like who came out of that era? You have Hogan, Nelson, Snead, three of the great ball strikers. The guys that were junior players in the 50s would have been Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, on and on from Mo Norman to George Knudsen, and all these people would have been junior players in the 50s. Now, you had a junior, a heavier club, typically a little flatter lie angles, no offset on that stuff, and you start learning to hit that club. That club becomes a teacher for you, right? So you start. The people that were
Absolutely.
designing these clubs were great players at the time. You had Hogan coming in designing clubs. You had Tony Penna, which is a great player and designer of clubs. Now you have like scientists designing clubs that can't break 100 themselves, or they're like, oh, it's all about wind tunnels and science or whatever. But Hogan would have understood like offset, right? Where the
Right.
scientist doesn't really I don't know what the offset is
There's no
doing to
frame of
the.
reference.
Yeah, these kind of things. Al Barkow, the great sports writer, told me once that he was at a clinic with Sam Snead, and Sam they had some range balls down. He starts hitting these balls. He starts complaining like, "Yeah, these golf balls are terrible." And Al said, "Hey, what's wrong with these golf balls?" And Sam picked one up. He goes, "Got too much paint in the dimples." yeah, I mean, and sure enough, the rep was there, and he said, I think you're right, Sam. I will send these back to the factory or whatever." It's just the nuances and the little details that a good player is going to pick up on that maybe like a scientist isn't going to pick up on so much, right? And
Sure.
personally, I'd rather have my clubs designed by someone that was a great player themselves, than somebody that's
Of
just
course.
speculating in a white lab coat somewhere in Pasadena or something, right?
Yeah, I mean it's not even a question. It's like would you want an ugly looking club or a nice looking one? I mean how much thought does that require?
Yeah, well, the persimmon, of course, I mean, let me just, look at this thing. So here's a Ben Hogan. I don't know if we can see this. This would have been
Oh, it's like
1950s, right?
50s maybe.
The
Yeah.
sunburst. This is before the speed slots, right? So I prefer these.
Yep.
Um, but just, you know, just beautiful this club is.
Oh,
To sit this down and look at this thing, it's a beautiful handcrafted club. Every club is a little bit different because it's an organic material, and it gives you the feeling that that your driver is a little bit different than the guy over here. He might have the same club, but mine's the cut of wood, just the hardness of it, the way it feels, or whatever. Um, all of
yeah,
that stuff is
100%.
very integral to me to golf. I have to really love. I need a lot of love around me. I need love on my clubs. I need to look down and say, man, I love how this looks. I love how it feels, and I love how it performs.
The
And I
result,
need
yeah.
that from my wedges down to my driver, and I want to feel that way about the golf ball. I want to feel about I was on the Max Fly tour staff when I was on tour,
Okay.
and I love the HT ball.
Sure.
Even played the DDH ball, the Bellatas back then. I
Yep.
played Titleist in college, but a brand new Titleist out of the sleeve, teething that thing up. The rubber, soft wound ball really could
One ball. Yeah.
compress it, could spin it and shape it. I love
Yep.
this ball. I love the club. I love this golf course. I love the people that I'm playing with because they're playing the same gear. I love hearing the sound of other people hit this stuff. So this
Sure.
is all the stuff you're talking about that's just been
Yeah.
out the.
No, it's 100%. I mean, I play, very infrequently. I was traveling down in Georgia. I was lucky enough to get paired up with a couple couple guys I'd never met in person, who were in a group chat that is kind of devoted to this persimmon and blade event that happens down in Virginia Beach in March. We ended up playing at Athens Country Club's an old Donald Ross course, and my friend was able to outfit me with a set of vintage clubs, and it was just like such a thrill for me. I was like 900 miles from home. We had a great weather. Walked 9 holes. All three of us were playing, 50-year-old equipment, and I mean, I hadn't touched a club, and I was just like I was just like on fire inside because I was just like so having so much fun. I mean, I was like 3 under through 6 holes, and these guys were like, "What's going on?" but it was like I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just it was just like in my element, and I just thought what a cool thing this was, and yeah, I mean I ended up doubling the last hole, but I still I mean if you would have told me before I teed off that I was going to shoot 1 under for 9 holes, I mean I would have said you were nuts, but it was a blast. It was an absolute blast. So. Um,
Well, yeah, it
but
certainly is fun to play proper
but I
equipment.
mean, even to that end, it's like, playing at these. I'm in the New York City metro area. These clubs are, 100 years old. Athens Country Club. I don't know the exact date of it, but we were able to play. I know if, and even we spoke about it during the round. Like some of these holes, it's like the round wouldn't have been nearly as interesting hitting, a drive and a you know, whatever, 80, 90, pitch shots into shorter par fours. And, you just, not, if you're playing a course that's 6,500 yards or, you know, whatever it may be, if 6,000 yards, and again, like, I play very infrequently. There's a course that I love to play up in New Hampshire. It's an untouched, like hidden gem Hooper golf course. It's probably 3,000 yards, and I played it with my, about 6 years ago. I played it with my normal, relatively modern set of clubs that are long out of date now. But I mean, I have a much better time, hitting a greater variety of clubs, and I get more out of it. I mean, I don't. It's like if I, who am I fooling if I just go out and hit 4 clubs in my bag? It's like, who really cares what Cory's doing? I would much prefer to hit a wide variety of clubs throughout the round. It's sort of common sense, but
Yeah, it's
it's
common
like,
sense. If you look
it
at
really
a
is.
set of golf clubs that we would buy, like that was under my Christmas tree, the Hogan a 2 iron through pitching wedge,
Yep.
typical championship course, it would be 6,800 yards, 6,900 yards, would require me to hit 3 long irons, 3 mid irons, and 3 short irons, right? Meaning 2, 3, and 4 long irons,
Yep.
5, 6, and 7 mid irons, and short 8, 9, and wedge. That's why the holes are different lengths. Common sense, yes, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be challenged throughout your skill set. Long irons are harder to hit. You need a better golf swing to hit a 1 iron than you do a wedge. I mean, it's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
This is where it creeps into my area here. And as a teacher at advanced ball striking, I teach my students to hit 1 irons. And I noticed that you have a bag full of one irons. I saw
Oh,
that.
it's one of the things that gets some of the largest reactions at the clubs that I've been to. I mean, I sent clubs down to Caves Valley for their parent-child for they had like skills competition. I looked at the one irons when they came back, and they had a lot of they were hitting them indoors on a simulator. But I mean, they got a good workout. It's just something that just it's I don't know. It's like seeing like a T-Rex that's extinct at this point. People have no frame of reference for what that is.
Yeah, a one iron is an extremely powerful tool to have in your bag. My entire college and pro career, I carried a one iron all the way through. So I would use it when I needed to keep the ball down. I needed to absolutely get one in the fairway. The one iron, I can't hook it. I can't hook a one
Hmm.
iron, so I just aim down the left side of the fairway, hit a dart down there, leaks a little bit right. I'm in the middle of the fairway. I leak it a little bit too much. I'm in the right side of the fairway. I don't miss fairways with a one iron. Uh,
Right.
get it in play. Keep it low. It's a great club to have, but you need a good golf swing to hit a one iron. So another
Yeah,
thing that
it's
we're
not gonna
talking
do it
about that has
itself.
been lost is the technique that would be used to hit a one iron and how that feels in the body to be able to master the moves of what it takes to hit a one iron. What a great thing for a kid, a teenager, to learn how to hit a one iron. The feeling,
Absolutely.
I've got some friends that are surfers, and they talk about just what it's like to just drop in, the feeling, the experience of dropping in on a left swell or whatever they're coming in, getting tubed or whatever. Just the whole thing. It's not about money. It's not about. It's just about
Yep.
the experience. You need a certain skill set to be able to drop in and carve and get tubed and come out the other side and have that perfect ride. I mean, it's the same feeling of hitting a one iron off a hard pan lie and get it up in the air a little bit, draws in and lands and rolls up there 6 feet from the hole. I mean, you got something to think about for the next month. But you're
Yeah.
not going to have that kind of sensation just hitting a frying pan out there and chipping a gap wedge in, or it's like, who cares? It's just not even a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother, rabbit hole is like, when you were playing on tour, I mean, what was the most lofted wedge that you had in your bag? I mean, I'm guessing when you first started out, you didn't have, I mean, I don't have any lob wedges. I mean, I
No, I
just,
think my wedge, I would it would have been about 50 degrees, and that'd be it.
oh, 50,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I have 50-degree wedge, and then my sandwich would be 56. And
Okay.
that was it. No 60-degree
Yeah.
wedge. I never used a 60-degree wedge ever. My
Yeah.
sand wedge was made for hitting out of the sand. 56 degrees. I mean, I would open the face. Right now, it's
Of
65
course.
degrees or 70, whatever I wanted to. You open the face and you
Yeah.
learn how to hit that shot. Um,
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
then it comes back to the USGA and what's allowed and what's not allowed. You would know that going back in the 1940s, they allowed 16 clubs in the bag. You could have, they
Yeah.
put
Well,
it.
I mean, I think, I've in, like, I've admitted that I don't play as much golf now, but I've become a fairly avid and competitive pickleball player. And I, I think it was in September in Sacramento, the PPA, which is like one of the two major tours, they played a vintage wooden paddle open. And I'm just like shaking my head in like disbelief. Like they had all the best players in the sport playing with, vintage wooden paddles that, was around when the sport was created. And, there's so many of these things like, they reincarnated the skins game, and they have these, pseudo the match or whatever. It's like, this is the most whoever's in charge of the marketing of these tours, like, play with these old clubs. Like, it can't be any more obvious that this should be done. And it's a shame. And I obviously think that, the whole game now is driven by the this runaway train that's the equipment companies, and they have nothing to, no one has anything to gain by, people playing with, vintage clubs, but
Yeah, it's interesting.
they're
What
really missing
happened.
out.
I mean, the USGA. I mean, as I understood the USGA growing up, this United States Golf Association, an organization, kind of an arbitrary organization that would sort of oversee the rules of the game. So it was really their job to make sure that this didn't happen, right? I mean,
Well,
that's the
yeah,
reason for the
and now
USGA was for this not to happen, so that
it's
we would never have
it's
this conversation.
we're so far down the road now that
Yeah,
there's there's no one is going to be pleased. There's no good possible outcome because I mean, people like, it's an easy analogy with like the Fenway Park. Like, I'm a baseball fan. Like, Fenway's not, the Green Monster's not growing. But like you said, the things have gone so far. They can't just leave the golf ball alone. It's got to be the clubs too. But like, no, everyone's going to be, everyone's going to, have their pitchforks out because they kind of had their head in the sand and gotten to the place where we're at. So there's going to be no winners at this point.
yeah. I mean, the USGA's already admitted they've made a mistake, right? I mean, by rolling the ball back, they're saying we made a mistake. Sorry, we made a mistake. We're gonna have to roll the ball back.
Well, and then we're going
They're
to
going to
take
roll the
10
ball
years to
back
think
to
about it.
what? I mean, they're going to roll it back to 250-yard drives. It's going to be about like 20 compression or something, or just some, something like this, like a marshmallow ball or something. Um, no, I think my thought is that the three versions of golf are fine. Pick the one you want to play. But the problem is that the 2.0 version has really been like tossed under the bus, right? You can go and play Hickory
It's
events.
it's been it's
There-
been left for dead. There's
Yeah,
no two ways about it.
it really has. The one of our staff members, Neil Gascoigne, he's won 5 national Hickory Opens. He's got nice big trophies. They're very classy events over in the UK. He's won the Scottish and the Irish, Welsh, or whatever, all the Hickory tournaments, and and that's really great to see that happening. And of course, you have the modern game, but then the 1935 to 1995, that whole era, and all those great courses that were created, and the gear, and all of that stuff, is really just being thrown under the bus and not acknowledged. Um, so I think if you look at Major League Baseball, because it's a very good comparison, right? They're both classic American, American game or whatever. You have the golf started in Scotland or whatever, so you've got it's a stick and ball, right? Stick and ball
Right.
game. So baseball, still wood bat. Cricket, still wood bat. Golf, if it had stayed persimmon, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? The
Nope.
USGA had a chance in the late 70s, early 80s when the metalwoods came out. They could have just said no. They could have said not at, or the PGA Tour could have said no. Like amateurs, you want to use that? Fine. What is amateur baseball? Softball, right? Basically,
Right.
right? I mean,
Right.
I'm sure there are some amateur baseball leagues, but pretty much if you're an amateur and you love, swinging a wood bat or swinging, you like baseball, but I don't want to swing a wood bat. I got a aluminum bat, a bigger ball. It's safer. It's, corporate game, play on the weekends, grab a 12 pack of beer. Nothing wrong with that. So the USGA could control that and say, okay, for your amateur kind of softball version of golf, these are the rules, and this is the PGA Tour should have probably departed from that and said, these are our rules. When you're in the show, this is the big leagues
Yep.
now. Here's you know this. Okay, you're in the big leagues. Okay, this is what you hit.
Yeah.
This is
I
a
mean,
professional. This is a pro club
if
here. Okay, you can
if the
use the other
Masters did,
stuff.
if the Masters didn't have $1 billion sitting in the bank, they probably would advocate for that as well. If they couldn't buy up, an entire neighborhood surrounding the golf course, they would have to. But
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
the Masters could have
they're in
put
a
their
unique
foot down.
situation.
Yeah, the Masters could have put their foot down and said no. The PGA Tour could have put their foot down and said no. The RNA could have put their foot down and said no. Amateur frying pans and all that, fine. I mean, I'm not against people doing what they want to do. If they want to play a frying pan driver and a plastic golf ball and go out and hit the ball 350 yards, that's fine. But for me, I don't get to watch professional golf anymore. Like I feel like when I watch the PGA Tour, I feel like I'm watching the pros play amateur equipment. It's like I feel like they're out there playing softball. It would be
Sure.
like if you took the major league, what we just saw in the World Series, and they say,
Yep.
"Oh yeah, we don't really do the overhand pitching. It's too dangerous. We have injuries. We can't do that. So we're gonna just throw underhand with a big ball. Same players." I feel like that's what I'm watching. I feel like I'm watching professional golfers playing softball version. So to me,
Yeah.
as a pro, that's not enjoyable. Like I can't relate to it. I'm not interested in that. I don't turn the TV on and watch the PGA Tour or the Live Tour. I think the Live Tour again may have missed an opportunity. They could have, if they're going to separate themselves from the PGA Tour, they could have said persimmon and blade over here. I mean, Greg Norman, I think he's kind of a purist. I've met him. A lot of money involved and all that, but I really believe this 110% that had Live gone persimmon and blades, rolled it back to the classic game, it would have been much more successful. People would be tuning in and watching that, and then now you've got
Clearly
the
would have been a
controversy.
differentiation between
Yes,
the two, whereas it's basically just splitting hairs.
yeah, I think there's an opportunity now. I'm very positive looking forward. I think at some point, people like you and I putting this out there, getting this conversation going, like what needs to happen is like baseball. All right, let me just back up for a second. Baseball does not have a USGA. Okay,
Right.
there's no United States Baseball Association that rules professional baseball, college baseball, little league baseball, amateur baseball, softball, everything. That doesn't exist. So Major League Baseball sets the bar for professionalism. It's not questioned. You want to come to the show? Wood, a
This is
hickory
it.
bat. That's it. Okay, you're in the majors. This is what you do. What what golf needs is a proper persimmon and blades tour, professional. Doesn't necessarily need to be the same money as the PGA Tour or Live or anything like that. If a guy who's working, at the gas station or whatever, and he can go up to Canada for the summer with $20,000 and play golf for 3 months and come back with $40,000, a lot of guys would do it. You know,
Right.
we had guys sleeping in campgrounds, 3 guys in a room. I mean, it was a tremendous experience for me to play professional golf, even though I never played in the big money. I played Canada, Australia, we had $500,000 purses down there. It's not bad. You win a tournament, you make, 30, 40 grand. Not bad for 4 days of work, right? Especially back in the 80s. It was good money.
Yeah.
But now I would think that, if you had maybe, the events were $300,000 purses, something like that, and you had maybe a dozen of them scattered around the country on classic tracks. I think people are lining up to do it. I think there's a lot of young guys that would go that are like yourself or me, but you know what? I'm going to go do this. I can't hit it 350 yards, but I can take a persimmon and knock it out there 240, and I might be able
Sure.
to make a living. We had guys on the Canadian tour that were short hitters that were hitting at 235,
Yeah,
240 that were
I've
doing
listened
great.
to you describe playing with Cory Pavin.
Yeah, Cory hit a 235 max.
Right.
And he won 7 college tournaments my freshman year when he was a senior. He was a collegiate player of the year, dominated college golf, and he was one of the shortest hitters out there. Now that can't even happen now.
No,
He wouldn't even
it's
have
not
been
even
recruited.
remotely possible.
He wouldn't even be recruited out of high school. I talked with a college coach recently that said he won't even consider recruiting a kid out of high school unless he's hitting the ball 300 yards and whatever club head speed is required, 125 miles an hour,
100%.
whatever. Won't even look at a kid unless he's got that kind of club head speed. Now, is that good for the game? I don't think so. I don't think it's good with all the talk about, equality and, everybody, the version of golf we're talking about, the 2.0 version, you had tall, thin guys, short, fat guys, short, thin guys, guys that look like
Yeah, I
Arnold
mean,
Palmer with big forearms,
it
and you
all
have guys
came, all came down to, your ability to hit the center of the club face. And
manage your golf ball around the
the,
golf course. I mean, if you can hit
the,
every
the, tr-
fairway and get it on the greens and putt halfway decent, you could have a career in golf. And I think that that ship has sailed for a lot of kids now. I don't think it's good. It's interesting to me too how on the USGA, and then they'll have their commercials like in between, like the Walker Cup, and it'll say the USGA good for the game. It's always like good for the game. It's almost like propaganda or something, like kind of brainwashing, because it's not good for the game. It's not. So why do they even have to say it? Why do they have to say good for the game if it's a given that we know the USGA has done a great job of protecting the integrity of the game and the courses and the equipment and all that? Then they wouldn't even have to say that, right? It would just be a given.
of course.
But the fact that they have to say it, is just some sort of
Yeah, it's a little disingenuous.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
just basically like, be like me telling you what a great player I am. It's like that's the kiss of death.
yeah, I think getting a professional tour together, like a Golf 2.0, Persimmon and Blade Tour, back on the classic tracks. The press is going to like that. The media like it's a great story. Plenty of. And all of a sudden, all the historic records and what people did in the past are all relevant again. Can
Yeah. Well, I mean, but
can Rory
there's
McIlroy shoot a back-to-back 66s? On this golf course that Lee Trevino did back in '73. It's a great story. Right? They might even interview the old guys and say, "Hey, how did you? What do you think?" Yeah.
I can't think of in I say often say golfers are the most gullible sportsmen, and I can't think of another game sport, hobby where vintage things are just looked down on the way that if we talk about cars, we talk about vinyl records, talk about collecting coins. I mean,
See my vinyl records down here.
vinyl records. It's an experience. It's an analog experience. I just it still just blows me away that this stuff is kind of like hidden in plain sight. And I mean, I got people approach me all the time. I mean, I could literally, if I had the time, the money, the space, I could fill. I mean, I've got half of a garage full of equipment now, but I mean, I was just trading messages. Guy reached out to me, and it's like, look, I would love to. I mean, I hate to say no because I know what it is. I would love to have it, but it's like the stuff. It's a shame that that you and I are just like talking about it in disbelief that the stuff isn't more utilized because of all the positive things that we've spoken about. You can't argue with history. Like these we're talking about classic golf courses are that they're meant to be played with this equipment.
Yeah, meant to be played, and I think it touches on the two sort of you've got the collector's version, right? The collector people could just collect clubs like this and say, oh, well, this is a Spalding driver, but oh, well, this has a like a Model 28, but this one has Z4245 on the bottom. Does yours have there's that whole thing where, oh, and this was pressed at the the Mint over in Colorado or whatever. You have all of that stuff like baseball cards and that kind of thing. But then you have the playability of it, and I would say that these clubs, the reason that I play them is because they're actually the best clubs to play. You're as far as shaping and curbing the ball, being able to work the ball. I don't want a cavity back iron. It's going to destroy my golf swing because I'm not going to be able to feel where on the club face I'm hitting it. I need to know exactly where I'm hitting it so that when I hit another ball, it's like, oh, yeah, a little on the toe. Boom, okay, there it is. Boom, right there, right there. if I can't feel where on the club I'm hitting it, my brain isn't going to allow me to get better, right? So
Right.
it's a problem from a playing standpoint to improve. You're going to improve having equipment that's going to help you improve, like a great set of irons, great set of persimmon woods. It's going to help you with your ball striking. It's going to make you more refined and a better player, a more precise player, and the enjoyment of paring that with a golf course that's appropriate for the gear. It makes sense to do that.
Yeah. Well,
And
and in addition to that, it's like once you have that equipment that you just the scenario that you just described, it's not something that is going to you're not going to need to it's not going to become obsolete in 2 or 3 years time. You can play this for as long as you want. I mean, that's like I said, I kind of alluded to it earlier. Like once people found an old McGregor driver that they liked, like you had to wrestle it out of their hands. Jack Nicklaus played with like the 3-wood. Like I think it's widely quoted. He didn't regrip it for 30 some odd years. He played with the same 3-wood. It's a totally different thought process when you just kind of just leave that sort of modern idea of what you've been sort of fed to believe, that you just kind of get off and say, like, once I found something that agrees with my swing and my game. I found I've got a Hogan 3-wood, I've got a Tony Penn a 5-wood that works outstanding. I've got a couple drivers that all that work fairly well. Someone just built me a brand new persimmon to with a Hogan shaft, but I can play with that indefinitely.
yeah,
The game is meant to be played. It's not again, like this sort of buying a game, or that the sort of thought process that people don't even question now is unthinkable to me.
did you read Golf in the Kingdom?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I've
what
been
are
to
your
Esalen.
yeah, so what are your thoughts on that? Did you go to Esalen?
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me about
yeah.
that experience.
I went there, and I went for a seminar with George Leonard, who was the co-founder, and he was at the time, I want to say he he might have been about 76 years old, and he was talking about he was like a double black belt in Aikido. I mean, I'd never encountered someone of that age who, I mean, he moved like so gracefully. I mean, he just kind of like it was like he was like Neo in the Matrix. He just like defied laws of physics. It was amazing. It's just super cool place. And I couldn't catch the Golf in the Kingdom seminar. It didn't agree with when I was going to be out there, so that was sort of the next best thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like that book. It really kind of seems to knock on the heart of the game, like really getting down to the core of of what golf really is all about. And I've made the argument that golf is the greatest game ever invented. It's certainly, you've got one of the biggest playing fields, smallest
Hmm.
targets. You're outdoors, you're dealing with nature and wind and elevation changes, topography, different kinds of grass. But also, when mankind landed on the moon, and was it Alan Shepard that took out
Yeah,
it's like the first thing that the human consciousness did when it went to another. I'm going to call the moon a planet because I'm going to argue that we're in a dual
sure.
planet system with the moon. But when we
Close
move
enough.
to another planet, the first thing that's done is a golf ball is struck. What do you hit, a 6-iron or 7-iron? But I mean, a golf ball hit. It wasn't a baseball. He didn't throw a football. It wasn't a hockey puck. It was, you know what I mean?
Right.
First thing, the first sport played, the collective consciousness. I'm getting a little bit metaphysical here, but I mean the collective consciousness of the Earth moving to another planet. And the first game that's played was golf. So that's my argument
Yeah.
for golf being the greatest game Therefore, I think it should be respected and treated well. The great game that you and I enjoy, is still out there. I enjoy playing the classic course with the appropriate gear. Not thrilled about the modern ball. I feel like I can't shape it as much as the Balatas, and I can
Yeah,
get by with it. It's okay. I don't
definitely
like
spins a lot
it.
less. Yeah,
I feel like I'm playing with. If you remember, like the DT Titleist, it was like a Serlin
oh,
covered wound ball. It was kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
like you wouldn't really see people using those in tournaments because it was, it didn't spin
yeah.
like quite like a Balata, but it was better
It
than a
was still
top
wound.
flight. It was
Yeah,
better than a pinnacle, right? The hard
yeah.
balls. So that's kind of what it feels like. I think the modern golf ball is an improvement over the old top flights and the pinnacles, but it's not a Balata. It's something in between, and to me, it's like a DT Titleist or something.
Yeah,
That's
it's a very apt description. I mean, I typically play with. It's kind of like a hot topic. But a lot of people have questions about, what balls do you play with this era of clubs, and I mean, I play with. I mean, I found just like the plain like Wilson Duo, which are extremely. I think you can pick them up for a little over maybe $25 a dozen, something like that. And again, the ball is soft, but it doesn't spin like the ones that you say. But I recently went over to a local simulator with TrackMan Launch Monitor, and I brought some vintage balls and was curious to hit them. Actually, I brought a DT wound ball, Tour Balatas, and the one that really took me by surprise was I had a sleeve of Tour editions.
yes.
And I was hitting I didn't tell my friend who had me over to do the experiment, and I hit the Tour edition, and it sounded so terrible and felt like a brick compared to the Balatas. And he was like, "What was that?" He's like, "That sounded different." And I was like, "Well, that was a Tour edition." It just
So what was the spin rate on the Tour edition? I'm curious about that because I know Greg Norman could spin that thing. He was playing those in the maybe in the early '90s or something, the Tour edition ball, and he was able to spin it and shape that ball. So were you able to get any data from that?
I did, yeah. I was kind of ended up being a little bit rushed. I mean, generally speaking, there was probably, I would say about I wasn't able to delineate much between any of I hit professional, Tour Prestige, Balata, Tour Edition, hit them all. They all basically spun, I would say, about 25% more than the modern ball.
Yeah, the Balatas are, they've just kind of, at this point, because it's been so long since anyone's made a wound ball, a wound Balata ball, they've just lost their
Yeah.
compression and the windings go bad. So it's, you know, if
Yeah,
you
they're
find some on
largely kind of
eBay, they're just
dead.
shot, right? They're just gone. They're maybe
And
okay to play inside like 150 yards or something, but if you really try and compress one with a driver, I mean, it just fizzles. And
yeah, and you
we
can
used to
even
be able
see
to
like
launch those
the
Balatas pretty
color of
good.
them is kind of off white. They're
Yeah.
past their prime.
I'd like to see the scientific golf community make a high spinning ball again, maybe with the modern formula that they're using. I don't really have a problem with it being a solid core or whatever. I feel like with the modern space age technology, they should be able to make some kind of a solid core ball that would basically play like a Balata. I mean, I challenge any of you scientists out there listening to this, try and do it. Send me some.
Oh,
I'll test. I'll gladly test them out for you.
100%. It's eminently do. I have a friend who had a sort of a boutique golf ball company, and he said that He said that you could definitely make a. It would just be to make a wound Balata would be so much more expensive than essentially coming up with like a modern tour edition, or kind
Injection
of like you
molded
said, like a
ball.
solid core ball. You could just make a modern ball that spins more. They just that's just not in the parameters of what they're designing now. So
Yeah.
yeah, if I
So
had an
after
extra, few hundred grand, I'd love to make a batch of some high spinning balls.
Yeah, I mean, after an hour of us complaining, I mean, of course, there's a lot to complain about, but I think moving forward, solution oriented, I would really love to see like a good ball made, a high spinning ball. I would love to see some tournaments that are designated for persimmon and baladas. I mean, if you look at other sports, like we talk about cars a bit, right? Look at the different kinds
Yep.
of racing that there is, right? You got the Indy cars. You got on one side, you got drag racing on the other, with just a straight line, and then you got everything in between. You got NASCAR, and you got Formula One, and you got the races through the cities, and then you got dirt races and dune buggies, and I mean you have all these different things, and it's not like you have the United States Racing Association says you can only race this one way. Everybody, we have to put it all under one umbrella. It's this car, it's this track, and that's it. Why not have Super Golf? A persimmon and blade, hickory. Oh, they got frisbee golf, right? I mean, I got a friend who's in the area here. He's one of the chairman of the local frisbee golf associations or whatever. Nobody's going to jail for playing the game
Yeah.
that they want to play. If I go out and play persimmon and blades on a course, and nobody's coming out and arresting me or whatever. If I put on a tournament and I say, hey, we're renting the golf course, these are the rules. I mean, if I rent the golf course and I say we're going to play golf with a tennis racket and a ping pong ball, am I going to get arrested? Is somebody going to come and take me away? I mean, maybe. Hopefully not. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think moving forward, I have a lot of confidence in the younger generation, kind of calling BS on a lot of stuff, whether it's just politics or whatever. There's a younger generation coming up that's just saying, whoa, 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 we don't like what we're being handed here. I think I have a lot of younger students. I've got students that are in their 20s that are hitting persimmon. They're just like, no, they just say they're not interested in it. They see it. They watch old golf footage, shells matches or whatever. They see these beautiful
Yeah.
clubs being hit and the courses are, they're
Well,
like, I want to do that. I don't
that's
want to do this. I don't want this
that,
shoved down my throat.
that's the thing, John, is that you can, you know, it's so it's such a levels the playing field, because these clubs, like all the, we mentioned the brands, like you can, without being, a superior, you know buyer and seller on eBay, or kind of, without even trying, you can pick up a general persimmon and blade set, woods and irons for $250 all day long.
All day
So I
long
mean,
or
you put
less.
that in the context of you can't even a standard like ping answer style putter now is going to run you over $200. So we're just talking about one club, and you can basically buy the best, any of these sets of Hogans. There's kind of outliers, say Wood Brothers, people love to point to that. That's, you know
Here's
those,
my putter.
Iron Master putters. I
Iron
mean,
Master.
I've got
I bought this Iron Master. I think I bought on eBay maybe, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I bought it for, I don't know, 15 bucks. And
I've
that's what
got
I
20
use
of them.
when I
I've got
altered it
20
a
of them
bit.
down
Yeah.
in my basement. Like like I love, I kind of love the quirky odd stuff. I putted with a zebra for a long time. Like, you can buy those for like a 6-pack of beer. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, all of this stuff, it doesn't really require it's
It,
comparatively
it,
speaking,
it
someone of any
changes.
sort of someone of any sort of, you don't have to be a multimillionaire to get into persimmon and blades. And even if you want to try it, like, you're not going to bankrupt yourself, experimenting, which is totally refreshing in my book. It's there's
Yeah,
no
it's
PXG
fun.
of the persimmon world.
It's fun. And it's people like you and I that, just keep the conversation going, right? More and more people. I'll tell you what, when I started advanced ball striking in 2008, there was nobody was hitting persimmon. I mean, nobody, right? I mean, it was just like,
Yeah.
what? People, I was still hitting persimmon because that's what I had always played. I didn't play golf for 13 years, so I missed the whole Tiger area. When I came back to golf, I pull out my clubs, dust off the cobwebs, and it's like persimmon and blades. And people are like, what are you doing?
What's
And
that?
I'm like, well, I'm shooting 68 and you're shooting 88, so what are you doing? You know?
Right.
So now there's a lot more people playing persimmon and blades than there were, say, 15 years ago. And I would say
Yeah,
that
I mean,
another
I
10
think
or
I
15
think I think
years.
you're friends with you're friends with David Bass.
Yeah, David, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like David Bass. I mean, there's another person that lives very far, not very far from him, Nim Brand, that's in North Carolina. John Hayes made me the club. There's a guy, Justin Bruce, who's now 3D printing inserts that you can, add logos to, which is super cool. 3D printing that stuff. So
Great
there's
use
kind
of
of like a little bit of an
technology, yeah.
underground, there's grumblings that this stuff is alive and well because, I know David Bass and Nim, those guys are busy. They're making clubs.
Yeah, yeah. I'm positive. I'm hopeful and positive about it. I mean, for me, I just ignore. I just play the great clubs, and I still go out and beat everybody. So it's like I don't, I wish there were pro tournaments that I could play in. I'm 61, but I still feel like I could compete if it were persimmon and blades. If we're apples and apples.
Right.
It was 2010 or 11. I won the TRGA event in Vegas by 7 shots, wiped everybody out, and I hadn't played a tournament in 17 years. I went out and won it because I just kept playing this gear, and everybody else had gone to the modern gear, and they destroyed their golf swings because now they can't feel where they're hitting the ball, where they're hitting it on the face. They go back to persimmon and
Yeah.
blades. Like, well, I don't know how I used to hit these things. Well, I guess you don't know how you used to do it because you just shot 76 and I shot 70. So I'm holding up the
Right.
trophy and you're not, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that would be something that I don't think the USGA is going to do it. I don't think they want to admit what that they've messed up so badly. I think what has
Sure.
to happen is a new organization comes up and says, "Oh, okay. So how does a new organization be created? Dollars, right? Put up the money. I mean, it's
Yeah. Well,
literally
I think
just a money
I,
thing,
I
right?"
think I think it's definitely a money thing, and I think the one, I mean, I'm about to turn 52 years old. I mean, I think there has to be an element to this that there's got to be the young people, like you said, like, people, juniors, got to be, realize the value of this and just amplify the message that people are playing with this, that this stuff is out there. It's affordable. It's great to look at. It's great feel, great sound, all of that sort of stuff. And I think without having younger people who are so much more in tune with social media savvy, that, I mean, if I were to go on and play with Bryson or something like that, or one of these Bob Does Sports or Barstool or whomever. I mean, those guys have never done anything related to persimmon and blades. It's largely over their head. But I mean, that's the type of thing that needs to happen to get this out in the world. And I think once it starts, I think it will sell itself.
Yeah, I think it's simple. New organization, new funding, right? A lot of the classic courses that have been ruled obsolete would be more than happy to have proper gear. I mean, Los Angeles
I mean,
Country Club,
I
the
was
reputation of LA
traveling.
Country Club is decimated after what happened down there.
I was traveling. I was in Philadelphia. I was had a meeting with the pro Dave Paget at White Marsh Valley. They used to have a tour event like in about I think maybe ended in like the early 80s, and like they're a prime candidate to or like Westchester Country Club is very close to me. they had Buick Classic there for forever and ever. That these are the clubs that those guys were playing at those courses.
I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's just a matter of it doesn't would it would I think for a few $1 million. I mean, I think if $5 million could be raised, easily done. There's people out there that have $5 million that could just they're gonna die soon. Here's
I
five
think you're
million,
right.
go do
Yeah.
this or whatever. I mean, it would be a good cause for sure. Um,
Yeah.
Something like that. It's just golf courses. You rent the golf course. You have the clubs. Okay, if they can't come up with your own clubs, here we go. Corey's got clubs, right? Okay, we got clubs. We got a golf course. Here's the rules. We write up our own rules. Okay, these are the rules. 4 round
Yep.
tournament, 3 round tournament, whatever. Practice round, a dinner. I mean, I love the coat. We used to wear tuxedos, on pro-am dinner nights on Wednesdays up on a Canadian tour, very classy events. And,
Wow.
we got Prince Edward Island, all you can eat lobster feast. We're sponsored by the Lobster Pound, supply. It's just great, right? Um, Bring the elegance back to the game, I think, dress code, make people look nice again, this whole they look like they're wearing like tennis shoes out there on the course and stuff. I just love the classic leather shoes and spikes and all that stuff. Because it's better for the swing and for playability as well to be, rooted into the ground. These are all, I think they had everything right before. So new organization, bring it back, fund it, put it out there. I'm more than happy to consult or get involved, or whether you'd be involved. Anyone watching this, if you got an extra couple $1 million, send me an email. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it,
I mean,
I think it will happen at
I
some point. At some point, I have to believe, from a kind of a spiritual, metaphysical sort of conscious golf in the kingdom kind of a thing. I think the spirit of the game really lies in persimmon. I really believe this is the core. The spirit of the game is wood.
the soul.
The soul of the game is
Yeah.
that. Okay, and I think that soul has been kind of pushed down. Something else has come up. That's fine, but you can have different kinds of flowers in your garden. You know what I mean? You can have some geraniums over here. You can have some gardenias over here, or whatever. It's like they can all sun, water, earth. You want technology, frying pans, go do that. You want to play 2.0, like what we're talking, do that. Tournaments, events. You want to do hickory, do that. There's room, there's enough golf courses and people for everyone to have a voice. So, any final thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No. There's just kind of like a lot of it's just like a lot of groupthink, and it's a totally different, a 180 of a conversation if you're saying that, like, hey, I I want to play golf, I want to play with this equipment, and I realize that it's it's not it's it's a totally different mentality, saying that, like, I realize that this equipment is going to be slightly harder to play with, but in lieu of that, I'm like the looks of it a whole lot better. I like the feel of what the clubs feel like when I hit a center hit shot, and like it makes me happy.
Yeah,
Like, what
I'm a
more do you
musician
need?
too, and in music, I play drums and guitar as well. But it'd be like, why would someone play an acoustic guitar if they could play an electric guitar with thin strings and play faster or whatever on electric guitar? But hey, I like the feel of the sound. I like an acoustic guitar. It's a full body. I can play by the
There's
campfire. There's an argument
horses.
for
Sure.
playing acoustic guitar and not playing electric guitar. You know. So it's all these points, but I do think it's growing. I'm hearing more and more people talk about it. What I would like to see is some of the old timers just really come back out and say, you know what, you want to know what I really think, And I did have a conversation with a former PGA Tour player. I'm not going to name him, but he was
Hmm.
absolutely just f-bombing everything that's going on, and said that it's pretty much unanimous with the older guys, but the reason that they're staying hush about it is because everyone's still tied to the game in one way or another. Whether a lot of them are equipment reps, or they're teaching, or they're working at a course, or they're still tied in with under this USGA, like you have to be this certain thing, and everyone's just kind of like keeping shut about it. Now, I'm not tied in with anyone, so I can, I'm not a real aggressive, like F-bombing kind of person or whatever, but I mean, people know my position, people know your position. I think we need
Yeah.
to collectively just keep the conversation going. I know there's some Facebook groups that are out there now that weren't there before, like Persimmon
Yeah.
Golf and Classic
Persimmon
Golf and
Golf Society is very
societies
good.
and stuff. So
Very, a lot of very knowledgeable people. Yeah.
yeah, and it's fun to be the underdog too, a little bit. It is kind of fun to do that. So I'm hopeful, and I just
Yeah, I mean, I welcome anyone that reaches. I mean, funny story. Last night, a guy messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking for this driver. I used it. I grew up in Indiana. Club Pro was kind of a custom job, and I was like, kind of looks familiar." And I'm like, you know what? Next time I'm at the garage, I'll take a look. I'm like, you know what? I think I have it down here at my place, and it turns out that I don't know who. Way back then, you could kind of make your own. If you could kind of add your name or your certain club or the pro's name onto like a McGregor head or Louisville or someone like that who made it. And it turns out I had almost the identical club, and it was kind of marked with a local club in Connecticut here towards me. And he was just like blown away. He's like, I can't believe that you have that. Like, because there's basically no information, there's no branding on it. And, I was like, look, let me send it to you. And I'm like, you pay me the shipping for it. I'm like,
right. That's
the
great.
club's clearly meant to be with you. And he was just like so appreciative. I mean, it was like literally finding, like, I'm the one person that he could have reached out to find this, needle in a haystack type of thing. But I mean, I'm more than I'm not all knowing like Yoda of these clubs, but I do know quite a bit from what I've been able to kind of accumulate over the years and more recently. So I'm happy to point anyone kind of in the right direction, to giving advice where what to look for, or if I have it or not, or where they can sort of do it. So I'm certainly not gatekeeping in any sort of way.
Yeah, well, I mean, just one last thing. I mean, the irons that stick out to me as really the greatest blades, I'd say Hogan Company, the 58 Sunbursts. Really love those. I really like the early power thrust with the shaved off toe. Hogan was, a great striker, wanted the center of mass to be a little bit more in the center towards the heel, and his better strikers tend to hit a little more in the heel than out on the toe. That was a great club. In the Hogan, I really like the bounce soles a lot. That was a great
Oh
design
yeah,
too. Wilson, I really
yep,
like
I got a bunch of those.
yeah, I really like the early Dynapower stuff, the 56, 57, 58, 59 with the black plugs in them. A little lower
Yep.
center of gravity. Palmer won all his tournaments with those. Great, great clubs. I like the late '60s, the bullet backs of
Mm-hmm.
the bullet backs and the button backs. Wilson, the
Yep.
Dynapowers. In the Spalding, the executive bird on the ball. George Knudsen played those. Great irons. They were a knockoff of the Hogan power thrust with the shaved off toes.
Okay.
Basically, they did that with that club. That's a great club. The power built level looms are great. Those are really fine irons as well. And the McGregor, I mean, the VFQ series are great.
Yep.
So many of the
Yeah, those
MT, the
black ceramic
MTs.
faces are really really cool.
Yeah, the MTs were great. Love the shafts that they had back then. Love the Propel shafts. The Propel number one shafts were really good to look for. Those black ceramic face VFQ were the
Yep.
VFQs. McGregor.
BOQ, yeah.
Yeah, those are were great clubs. Just
Yeah,
off the
like
top of my head.
Tourney Customs. There's a lot of
Yeah, the
great like
Tourney
Nicholas.
Customs, great heads. Yeah, I forgot about that one. I got a set of those. I just love those a lot. And Tony Penna
Yeah,
made a really great blade in the early '60s that was interesting. I had Lewis Brown, who's last year's United States Senior Amateur Champion, and he came out. And we played a persimmon and blades round, and I've got, like you, I got like 100 sets out in the garage, and he was looking through, and he ended up all the sets that I have. He pulled those Tony Penos out and looked at those. He said, "That's what I'm going to play today." So I thought that was interesting because that's an obscure set. Most people don't even realize that Tony Penny was
Sure.
making one of the great blades.
Irons.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so those are just off the top of my head. You have Spalding, Wilson, McGregor, um, Powerbilt, Hogan. Those five companies were making a lot of great clubs, and then there's a lot of other companies that made clubs as well. But those were kind of like
Yeah,
the big
any of
five.
the, kind of the Mizuno stuff is a little not as common, but I mean, I've got an awesome set of like Sevi sounder irons
Hmm.
that are just, even Joe Powell got a set of like, I think it's PG1 or something. I think that's the name, um, model of them. Um, some
Was
Arnold
it like
Palmer standards, which were
Fernquist?
first flights.
Fernquist and Lundquist or something. There was another company that made nice sets, and then Stan Thompson made some great clubs also. Some of the Stan Thompson sets are really. My dad, 8-time club champion, played Stan Thompson all through his club championship reign or whatever. So, and the Woods too, very kind of little niche company out of Los Angeles that made Henry Griffiths too, right? So there's a lot of little companies that made great clubs, but and it's fun to hit that different stuff and figure out what you like. And when you're playing clubs in a ball, then it's all serendipitous with the golf course. Everything's in harmony. You're hitting it out there 250. You're hitting long irons, mid irons, short irons, enjoying the game the way it was meant to be played. Now you're in connection with the architect, who laid the course out for you. I feel like when I play a round of golf, I'm playing the architect because it's a solo. It's a
Mhm.
solo game, right? I'm not hitting a
Sure.
ball to somebody else and having it returned to me, right? So I'm not passing the
Yeah.
ball. It's like me. Okay, so it's golf course. I'm playing the golf course. I am playing the weather, right? So I'm playing, you
Yep.
can call that God, nature, whatever. So it's like I'm playing the course, I'm playing the weather, and then I'm playing the greenskeeper. In other words, how he set the course up that day, he or she, I should say. Was it set up? Are the tees back? Are they forward? Where are the pin placements? And how the grass was cut. Am I playing early in the morning where the greens just cut, or am I playing in the afternoon or whatever? So those are my opponents. When I go out and play, architect, weather, greenskeeper. So now,
Yeah.
okay, it's me against these three things. I can play alone. I can finish my round and say, was I successful? Did I shoot under par today? Did I beat these three entities out there, or did I get my ass kicked? Out there. So love the game.
It's always a possibility. Yeah.
Love what you're doing. So all right, well we should probably wrap it
Yeah.
up. So how do we get a hold of you, Corey? Anyone that wants to contact you about getting the 100 sets to do an event or something like that?
Yeah, no, so I have a website. It's retrogolfclub.com. I'm pretty active on Instagram, posting. Last winter I kind of did a kind of an interesting series where I cataloged all the blade irons that I had and was able to post. People were able to sort of vote on. It was might post up 4 Wilson irons and kind of with a kind of different views and pictures, and people would kind of chime in with whatever they sort of preferred. But yeah, I post a lot over there, so you can catch me on Instagram or Facebook or kind of anywhere. So not too hard to find.
Okay, well, great. I'm sure there'll be a few people that'll love what we just talked about, and there'll be a lot of haters, right? So I'm gonna
That's
put a
fine.
little
I
warning
mean,
on here. I'm gonna put like a warning. Do not watch this video unless you're ready to hear, two people with a similar mind go. We don't have a
yeah. Well, I
contrarian
mean,
here, right? So that's
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's just like you said, just like you mentioned all the different varying forms of car racing. It's like, hey, there's no one's poo-pooing one over the other. I
yeah,
mean, there's a seat for everyone.
there is, yeah. All right, Corey. So just real quick, we're going to sign off here. Don't hang up until it's re-record it, upload it on both sides here. So I'm gonna hit it. Okay,
Okay.
everybody, we will see you soon, and thanks for watching if you made it this far into this thing. Okay,
Thanks, John.
bye. Bye.